I am sick to death of hyper-partisan politics. It just resembles team sports. As fake and gay gets.
Potentially offensive opinions.
Before I start, quick disclaimer. I'm just a guy who drives a forklift for a living. I am a layman. I'm not going to get on here and LARP as some super intelligent, well-read guy. I dig into history and politics and stuff in my spare time. I listen to stuff pertaining to it when I'm working, but I don't currently have a lot of spare time for editing or production or anything like that. Overall, I'm just another schlub with a computer in his hand that happens to have a camera on it. So don't expect a ton of graphics or memes or cinematic cuts or anything. This is just going to be my dumbass talking with a few edits just in case I have some dead air. Pretty unsophisticated. If you're cool with that, hang out with me for a minute. I am sick to death of hyper-partisan politics. I think it's fake and weak and gay. Having leanings this way or that, potential prescriptions pertaining to principles and problems of people, how's that for alliteration, is one thing. The extremities we've fallen into are a little different. It's fine to have opinions on these things. I do. Everybody do. That's normal. Whatever. Who cares? The problem is what politics has become. We can't even talk about this stuff. It doesn't resemble some intellectual debate. There's no nuance that I keep hearing about. It just resembles team sports. And in team sports, you don't really care about the character of the players. You care about one thing. Is your team winning? Is one of your players a drug addict? Yeah, but he's always there for the rebound. He keeps us in the game. Does another guy beat his kids? Well, there were a few incidents a long time ago, but man, he's fast. Did the coach cheat? Okay, how many rings does your team have? You're just jealous. Politics is the same thing now. You vote for your team and their promises, but they can abandon all of that stuff as soon as they're in office, and you don't notice or care because your guys are winning. Now, ask yourself something. Let me try a Karate Kid adjacent analogy. If your kid was in a tournament, right? Would you tell them to sweep the leg knowing they could permanently hurt someone just to win? I hope the answer is no. I hope the answer is no. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped applying basic morality to politics. I suppose maybe we never did. I don't know. We started excusing anything, though. Absolutely anything, as long as it helped our side win. Red team, blue team, it's the same game plan, right? And if winning is all that matters, then truth doesn't matter. Character doesn't matter, and eventually people don't matter. Now, it's certainly possible that it's always been this way, and I just misunderstood what it's supposed to be. But I think it's far more likely we're just being conned by a bunch of damn used car salesmen masquerading as leaders. As fake and gay gets. So I'll try to rein myself in here with the fakes and gays for the rest of this, just to clarify my point, which is this. We didn't get here in this hyper-partisan, divided, ill-informed, tribal landscape by accident. So let me call this part one, the blueprint. Where does all of this come from? The instinct to defend your side no matter what. So I'm going to start somewhere that doesn't really have any debate to it, no gray area or no conspiracy. World War II. Okay, there's a ton of conspiracies around World War II, but this part is pretty straightforward. This is where the United States didn't just use propaganda, it perfected it and did so very openly. In 1942, the U.S. government created the Office of War Information, the OWI, right? This wasn't hidden. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't some state secret. This was official stuff. And the job was simple: control the flow of information and shape how Americans understood the war. And when I say control, I don't mean censorship the way we think of it today. I mean coordination, alignment, everything in synchronization. The government, the press, Hollywood, advertising, whole nine, right? All moving in the same direction. Posters didn't just exist, something real people dreamed up to raise morale. They were designed. I want you, right? Nothing like, hey, help a brother out, or consider supporting, or this war made possible by contributions by citizens like you. Just you. Direct, personal, and inescapable. Loose lips sink ships. Now your casual conversation is a potential act of treason. Buy war bonds. Now your spending habits are tied to patriotism. This wasn't random messaging, dude. This was behavioral engineering at scale. And it worked. Millions enlisted. Families rationed food without question. Citizens funded the war. Partially. Not because they were forced to, but because they believed it was their role. And that belief didn't come out of nowhere. It was built this way. Reinforced, repeated. Across every avenue that people trusted. And it wasn't just about what Americans did, it was about how they felt. The enemy wasn't just an opponent, they were monsters, caricatures, cartoon characters, something less than human. Because once you do that, once you dehumanize people, war becomes easier to justify. Sacrifices are easier to accept, and questioning any of it becomes unthinkable. You just hate America. Hollywood played its part too. Films weren't just entertainment, they were narratives. Heroes were clearly defined, and morality was very simple. We are right, they are wrong. End of story. And here's the part that gets me. This wasn't hidden from the public. People knew this messaging was happening and they accepted it because it was wartime. It felt necessary. It worked. So that's phase one, a blueprint. We're laying the foundation. A fully coordinated system capable of shaping your behavior, your belief, and your identity at a national level. And once you prove something like that works, you don't forget it. The only question is, in my mind anyway, did we ever turn it off? Moving on, let's call this next part two, system evolution. World War II ends, but the system doesn't. Why would they give that up so cleanly? The system adapts because now the battlefield is different. It's perception, it's narrative, it's the Cold War. And this is where things shift. In World War II, propaganda was very obvious and everybody was cool with it. It was very unified messaging. Now, it gets quieter, more controlled, more precise. In 1948, the United States passed the Smith-Mundt Act, and that supposedly draws a line that we can run information campaigns overseas, but not on our own citizens. And on paper, that sounds like a safeguard. But in practice, yeah, we all know better than that, don't we? Firstly, information doesn't stay in one place. Through outlets like Voice of America, the U.S. broadcasts carefully crafted messaging across the world, promoting democracy, capitalism, the American way of life. And those messages don't just go over the border and never return. They echo back, they circulate. They become part of the same information environment that Americans lived in. At the same time, something else is happening. A lot of you are going to know what I'm talking about. It's not loud or public, but it's documented now. In the 1970s, a U.S. Senate investigation, the Church Committee, looked into intelligence agencies and their activities. What they found included ongoing relationships between intelligence agencies and journalists. No conspiracy theories here, boys. This ain't speculation. Programs later referred to as Operation Mockingbird described efforts to influence the media through journalists, editors, publishers, anybody they could get on board. Not necessarily to invent stories, but to shape which ones were told and how. And that distinction matters a lot because controlling information isn't always about lying. It's about selection. You highlight one story, you bury another. You frame events in a certain way and the audience still feels informed. Meanwhile, this isn't just happening in newsrooms, it's being formalized. By the early 1950s, the US had established coordinated psychological strategy at a policy level. Groups like the Psychological Strategy Board were created to organize messaging, influence perception across the Cold War landscape. It's part of the structure now. And again, culture plays its role. Hollywood doesn't operate in a vacuum here. Scripts are reviewed, access to military equipment and locations is granted or denied based on cooperation. The result is stories that reinforce a worldview. America as the defender, its enemies as the threat. Freedom, us, versus control, them. And to be clear and fair, this isn't happening in a world where there's no conflict. It's not like, there's super defined lines here. The Cold War was real. The tension was real. The way it was presented, that was shaped. So, here's the evolution so far. World War II, Central Office. You can point to it. Office of War Information. Cold War, there isn't one place. There's a network. Government agencies, intelligence, media, entertainment. It's not always perfectly coordinated. It's not always following orders. But often they're aligned, moving in the same direction. From something you can see to something you just absorb. There it is. That's phase 2, where propaganda doesn't disappear, it just dissolves itself into the system itself. Moving on, let's call this next part 3, personalized reality. We'll move into something a little new because the battlefield changes again. It's no longer just newspapers or radio or television. Hell, all of those things are becoming relics. Now it's platforms. Places where people don't just receive information, they live inside of it, scrolling endlessly. And unlike before, these platforms aren't government run, they're private companies, which creates a new dynamic. Because the government can't directly control speech, but platforms, they can. You don't need a formal conspiracy when interests align. I always love that quote. And this is where things start to blur. In recent years, communications released from Twitter, what's become known as the Twitter files, showed direct interactions between government officials and platform employees. Requests, recommendations, flags on specific content. Not actual laws or public policy, but back-channel communications. Now, depending on who you ask, this is either government agencies trying to limit misinformation or government agencies influencing what information people are allowed to see. Government doesn't have to censor anything directly, it just needs a system that will do that for them. And platforms already have that shit in place through algorithms, moderation teams, the content policies, TOS. So now, instead of controlling what gets published, you control what gets seen. What trends, what disappears, what gets labeled. The term shadow ban didn't come from nowhere. And most people never notice or don't want to because it doesn't feel like control. It feels like your feed. It feels like freedom. This is what I want to see. But here's what makes this different from everything before. Again, World War II propaganda interrupted your life. It was part of it. You were cool with it. In the Cold War, it just kind of secretly surrounded you. Now, it adapts to you. Your feed is personalized. Your information is filtered. Your reality is curated in real time, not by you. And when you combine that with government influence, even indirect, you get something new. Not necessarily centralized control, really not even one single narrative. You get these fragmented narratives, division, intentionally, I would argue. Different groups seeing different realities, and each one of them believes that they're the only ones that are truly informed. And that's where the shift has been happening, because once people are living inside separate versions of reality, agreement just becomes impossible. Not because people are necessarily stupid, not because people are necessarily evil, but because they're operating on completely different information. Those monstrous caricatures aren't foreign enemies now necessarily. They're your neighbors, they're your family. And that's phase 3, where propaganda isn't just broadcasts, it's embedded, it's part of you. And this is where hyper-partisan politics stops being surprising and starts being inevitable. Let me try to wrap this up. Is your team, to bring the analogy from the beginning back, is your team actually winning, or does it just look that way? Do the players lay it all on the line for you, for love of the game? Or are they just playing for the owner and they'd switch sides tomorrow for the right amount of money? Ask yourself this. Is that even really your team? Or did you just learn, maybe on your own, maybe with a little nudge, that these are your colors, these are your people, and the other side is the enemy? I don't think we're enemies, even when we disagree on policy, and we will. But maybe, instead of obsessing over everything that divides us, we should spend a little more time on what doesn't. Because right now, we're so deep into this cycle of division, that we've said things, done things to each other that would have been unthinkable in another time. And now it feels like, well, they started it. like some kind of endless sibling rivalry that just keeps escalating because the supposed adults make more gains the more we fight amongst ourselves. And sure, there are real disagreements, there are real problems, there are things worth arguing about. But maybe on the bigger issues, we're aiming at the wrong targets. Because if we spend a little more time looking upstream at what's becoming known to me anyways as the Epstein class, at what's shaping all of this, the systems, the incentives, the forces at the top, we might start to see something a little different. We might start to see that a lot of these divisions aren't as natural as they feel. And maybe, just maybe, some of them start to dissolve into something closer to understanding. And yeah, maybe even forgiveness. Because I don't think this is a game worth playing, least of all against each other. I think it's time for us fans, so to speak, us little people, to walk out of the stadiums. The owners in this analogy don't even care about the players, much less us, unless we stop participating. It's a two-party system, but I believe rather than red versus blue, it's the people versus the uniparty.